When we talk about the evolution of outdoor gear, we often think of sleek titanium stoves, ultralight fuel canisters and neatly engineered heat exchangers. But, long before any of those innovations hit the shelves, the foundations were laid in one of the most demanding environments in human history, World War II. Soldiers in the field didn't have the luxury of high-end camping gear. What they had instead were rugged, dependable and brutally efficient devices built for one purpose: survival. And among those was a piece of equipment that not only kept soldiers alive in frozen battlefields, but also quietly revolutionized how we heat our camps today: the World War II field heater. For the next few minutes, we're going to look closely at this forgotten invention, how it worked, why it mattered, and how it directly inspired the design of the portable stoves and heaters we still use in modern camping and survival setups. If you've ever lit a small burner in the cold and felt the relief of warmth spreading through your tent or mess area, you've experienced a piece of history that traces right back to the front lines of Europe and the Pacific. Necessity, not comfort, drove the creation of the field heater. In the early years of World War II, armies quickly realized that cold could be just as deadly as bullets. The brutal winters of Europe, the Russian front, and the high-altitude camps of the Allied forces exposed men to frostbite, pneumonia, and exhaustion. A soldier's tent could drop below freezing in minutes, and cooking became nearly impossible with standard fire pits that gave away light and smoke. The military needed something portable, safe, and efficient, something that could provide both heat and a means to cook in the most unforgiving conditions. That's where the M1941 field range and its smaller cousin, the M1942 mountain stove, came into play. Built primarily for United States troops, these stoves use liquid fuel, typically white gas or gasoline, to generate intense controlled heat. Unlike traditional campfires, they were wind-resistant, smokeless, and easy to pack. The M1942, in particular, was collapsible and designed for high-altitude mountain troops, allowing it to fit into a mess kit or rucksack. This combination of portability and performance, it really set a new standard for outdoor heating equipment. It was the first time that the concept of a backpackable stove had been perfected, and it would go on to become the blueprint for nearly every piece of modern camp heating gear we use today. After the war, millions of returning soldiers were already familiar with these compact heaters. They knew how to prime the fuel, adjust the flame, and use them for both heat and cooking. Companies like Coleman, Primus, and MSR saw an opportunity. The post-war years saw a surge in recreational camping, and manufacturers began adapting the proven military technology for civilian life. The modern liquid fuel camping stove, from the Coleman 502 to the MSR Whisperlight, can trace its design lineage directly to those wartime devices. The same pressurized tank, vaporization tube, and burner head design used by soldiers in Italy or France became the basis for the stoves used by backpackers in Yosemite or the Rockies. Even the concept of multi-fuel burners, stoves capable of running on white gas, kerosene, or aviation fuel, originated from wartime versatility. Soldiers couldn't afford to be picky about their fuel sources, so the original field heaters were designed to run on whatever they could scavenge. That principle of adaptability is still a hallmark of survival gear today. If you're serious about off-grid living or backcountry camping, you can apply that same mindset. Learn to use equipment that isn't fuel-dependent on just one type. For instance, if you rely solely on butane canisters, you're vulnerable to shortages or cold weather performance issues. Owning a stove that can burn liquid fuel, wood or alcohol gives you true resilience. The same kind that kept troops alive in the Ardennes in 1944. The Second World War field heater wasn't just a marvel of practicality, it was a masterclass in efficiency. Traditional campfires lose most of their energy to the open air, but these stoves concentrated heat into small, controlled bursts. That meant less fuel, less smoke, and less risk of detection, a crucial factor in combat zones. You know, from a survivalist perspective, the efficiency principle remains gold. When you're out there camping in those harsh environments, your stove or heater shouldn't just produce heat, it should conserve resources, right? The M1942 achieved this by using a simple vaporization system. Liquid fuel was pressurized, heated, and converted into gas before being burned. And the result? A cleaner, hotter, and longer-lasting flame. Quite impressive, really. Now, you can actually replicate this approach even with modern DIY methods. For instance, if you ever find yourself needing to create a makeshift heater in the wild, focus on controlling airflow and retaining heat. A small can stove or an alcohol burner made from scrap metal follows the same physics as the old field heater. Maximum heat output with minimal waste. It's all about efficiency, isn't it? These wartime designs also introduce the concept of contained fire, something modern outdoor enthusiasts, well, they tend to take it for granted. Instead of open flames, the fire was sealed inside a metal housing, reducing the risk of sparks and allowing it to operate safely inside tents or dugouts. It's a concept every responsible camper still benefits from today. Quite fascinating, if you ask me. The greatest lesson from the World War II field heater, it's not just about the hardware, really. It's about the mindset. You see, soldiers couldn't rely on ideal conditions, and neither can anyone who ventures off the beaten path. They carried equipment that was, well, compact, multi-purpose, and repairable in the field. Quite clever, really. They learned to prime stoves with limited fuel, clean jets with just a pin, and improvise repairs using wire or even scrap. Now, that same mentality, it separates a weekend camper from a true outdoorsman. If your gear fails in freezing rain, do you have the know-how to fix it? Can you improvise a heat source using spare parts, fuel, or even natural materials? The men who operated those field heaters, they weren't just users, you know. They were problem solvers. One practical takeaway is to maintain your gear as if your life depends on it, because in survival situations, it often does. Clean your stove regularly, store fuel safely, and always carry a backup ignition method. These small habits come straight from the soldiers who learned them the hard way. When you trace the lineage of modern camping gear, the Second World War field heater stands as one of the unsung heroes of innovation. Its influence reaches far beyond military history. It shaped how we think about heat, portability, and resilience in the wilderness. Every backpacking stove, every compact heater, and even every emergency burner owes something to that wartime ingenuity. The next time you fire up your compact stove on a cold morning, take a moment to remember the men who huddled around similar devices under enemy fire, melting snow for water or heating rations just to keep going. Their struggle gave birth to the tools that make modern outdoor living possible. If you found this exploration of Second World War innovation valuable, make sure to subscribe to Backyard Wisdom for more deep dives into the forgotten technologies that shape the modern world. Share this with a fellow history buff or camper who appreciates the roots of real survival gear. Because understanding where our tools came from is the best way to master how to use them today.